Deep beneath the earth, sealed away for over 2,000 years, lies one of the most mysterious tombs in human history. The final resting place of Qin Shi Huang, the first emperor of China, remains untouched. Not because archaeologists don't want to explore it, but because they can't. The reason? Deadly rivers of mercury. Ancient texts describe Qin Shi Huang's tomb as a massive underground kingdom, complete with entire palaces, mountains made of bronze, and flowing rivers of liquid mercury, meant to mirror the landscapes of his empire. The belief was that mercury could grant immortality, and ironically the emperor, who spent his life searching for eternal youth, likely died from mercury poisoning due to his alchemist's so-called elixirs of life. Modern tests around the tomb have revealed alarmingly high mercury levels in the soil, confirming that the ancient descriptions may not be just legends. Entering the tomb without proper protection could be deadly, making excavation nearly impossible. But that's not the only reason the site remains sealed. Booby traps, collapsing tunnels, and unknown ancient defenses could turn any attempt to explore the tomb into a dangerous mission with no way out. For now, Qin Shi Huang's underground world remains hidden, locked beneath layers of history and poison. What secrets still lie beneath? No one knows, and no one dares to find out. 2,000 years ago, an inventor in ancient China built a device that could detect earthquakes before people even felt them. This wasn't a simple bowl of water or a guess based on shaking ground. It was a precision-engineered bronze machine that modern scientists still struggle to fully explain. Created by Zhang Heng during the Han Dynasty, this seismoscope looked like a large, ornately decorated urn, surrounded by 8 dragon heads. Each dragon held a bronze ball in its mouth. When an earthquake occurred, the machine would drop a ball into the mouth of one of 8 toads sitting below, indicating the direction of the tremor. The most incredible part? It worked. Historical records describe how the device detected an earthquake hundreds of miles away, before anyone in the capital even noticed a thing. No one knows exactly how the mechanism inside functioned. Was it an ancient pendulum? A complex system of levers? Even with modern reconstructions, the full mystery remains. But one thing is certain. Zhang Heng's creation was centuries ahead of its time, proving that the people of ancient China understood the forces of nature far better than we once thought, and sometimes their knowledge wasn't just about predicting the future, it was about defying it entirely. Somewhere between science and superstition lies a mystery carved into the cliffs of China's mountains. High above the ground, balanced on wooden beams or wedged into rocky crevices, sit hundreds of centuries-old hanging coffins. No one knows exactly how they got there, or why the people who placed them believed the dead should rest so far from the living. These coffin burials, found mostly in the Yangtze River region, belong to the Bo people, an ancient ethnic group that mysteriously vanished. Their burial sites were built on sheer cliffs, sometimes hundreds of feet above the ground, where access seems nearly impossible even with modern equipment. Some historians believe these coffins were placed using ropes and scaffolding, while others suggest an elaborate system of pulleys or ramps. The reason? That's where things get even more puzzling. Some say the Bo believed that elevating the dead brought them closer to heaven. Others suggest it was a practical way to protect the bodies from animals or flooding. But with the Bo culture long extinct and their burial customs lost to time, the real answer may never be known. All that's left are the silent coffins, still clinging to the cliffs centuries after their creators disappeared, a haunting, unanswered riddle in the landscape. The hanging coffins of the Bo people might have been meant to lift the dead closer to the heavens, but in ancient China, an entirely different tradition forced the living to stay as small as possible. For nearly 1,000 years, women endured one of the most extreme beauty practices in history, foot binding. Starting as early as age 5, young girls had their feet tightly wrapped in cloth, bending their toes downward until the arch of the foot broke. Over time, the goal was to achieve 3-inch-long feet known as golden lotuses. These tiny feet were considered the height of beauty and status, making a woman more desirable for marriage. Walking became painful, balance was difficult, and running was nearly impossible. Yet for generations, millions of women endured the process, believing it would secure them a better life. Even after foot binding was officially banned in the early 20th century, some women continued the tradition in secret, unwilling to abandon a practice that had shaped their world for centuries. Today, The last surviving women with bound feet are in their 90s or older, their feet still carrying the marks of a tradition that once controlled their every step. And just as their bodies were shaped by an ancient ideal, so too was the world they lived in, where appearance determined fate, and pain was simply a part of beauty. Inside the Forbidden City, beyond heavily guarded walls, lay the imperial harem, a world where thousands of concubines competed for the emperor's favor. It was a place of power, ambition, and survival, but also a dangerous trap for those who misstepped. In this hidden realm, beauty could elevate a woman to riches, or seal her fate forever. Only the emperor could touch his concubines, and eunuchs were the ones tasked with overseeing the harem. This image, a strange and unsettling depiction, reflects the unusual role of eunuchs in the imperial court. Castrated at a young age, they were seen as safe men, unable to produce heirs, and therefore trustworthy within the palace. But some eunuchs held more power than the concubines themselves, influencing court politics and even the emperor's decisions. Those who overstepped, though, faced the same fate as an unlucky concubine: punishment, exile, or worse. For the women inside, competition was brutal. The most favored concubines could become empresses, while others spent their lives in obscurity. If a concubine angered the emperor, or if she was caught with another man, she might be silenced permanently, locked away in an underground prison, or even executed. Some historians believe that the Forbidden City once had a secret death chamber where fallen concubines were disposed of, ensuring their disgrace never left palace walls. Despite its luxuries, life in the harem was a gilded cage where every smile could be a deception and every whispered word could lead to ruin. Today the palace remains, but its secrets are buried with the women who once lived there, their names erased, their fates sealed in silence. The Great Wall of China is famous for its massive stone fortifications, stretching for thousands of miles. But what many people don't know is that its true power wasn't just above ground, it was also hidden beneath it. Beneath certain sections of the wall, secret tunnels and underground chambers allowed soldiers to move undetected, launch surprise attacks, or escape when the odds were against them. Historians believe that some of these tunnels were built as early as the Ming Dynasty, and they were far more than just passageways. Some led to storage rooms filled with weapons, others connected to hidden barracks where entire units could be stationed, and some even had booby traps designed to collapse on intruders. These tunnels weren't just for defense, they were part of a war strategy that relied on deception. Not all of these tunnels have been fully explored. Many remain sealed, forgotten, or too dangerous to enter, buried under centuries of history. Some explorers claim to have found sections where the walls still bear torch marks, as if someone had once been trapped inside, trying to claw their way out. What's hidden in the deepest, darkest parts of these tunnels? That remains one of the Great Wall's most mysterious secrets. China's ancient architects weren't just builders, they were geniuses of engineering, creating structures that could withstand powerful earthquakes long before modern technology. Some of the world's oldest earthquake-resistant buildings are found in China, and they have survived for over 1,000 years. One of the best examples is the giant Wild Goose Pagoda built during the Tang Dynasty. While earthquakes toppled many other structures, this pagoda remained standing thanks to an advanced technique called flexible timber framing. The key was a system of interlocking wooden joints known as dugong that allowed the building to move with seismic waves instead of resisting them. Unlike rigid stone structures that cracked under pressure, these wooden joints absorbed and redistributed the energy of an earthquake, preventing collapse. This method was also used in palaces, temples, and bridges, proving that China's ancient builders understood the forces of nature better than anyone could have imagined. Today, modern engineers still study these ancient techniques to create safer buildings. It's proof that sometimes the best innovations come not from new ideas, but from the wisdom of the past. Deep in the heart of Beijing stands a masterpiece of ancient engineering, the Temple of Heaven, a structure built entirely without a single nail. While most buildings rely on metal fasteners to hold them together, this architectural wonder is built using nothing but precisely cut wooden beams that interlock perfectly. The secret lies in the dugong system, the same interlocking wooden joints that made Chinese buildings earthquake-resistant. Each beam and support fits together like a puzzle, creating a structure that is incredibly strong and flexible. The Temple of Heaven has stood for over 600 years, surviving earthquakes, wars, and the passage of time, all without a drop of glue or a single metal nail. This technique wasn't just used in temples, it was applied to palaces, bridges, and even entire cities, proving that China's ancient builders didn't just construct buildings, they crafted works of art that could endure for centuries. Even today, architects study the Temple of Heaven to understand how ancient China mastered engineering that modern builders still struggle to replicate. More than 1,000 years ago, ancient Chinese alchemists set out to unlock the ultimate secret, eternal life. Taoist monks and scholars experimented with strange elixirs, mixing sulfur, saltpeter, and charcoal in search of a potion that would grant immortality. What they created, however, was something far more explosive. Instead of a drinkable life-extending serum, they stumbled upon a volatile black powder that would change the course of history. At first, the discovery was met with fascination rather than fear. Early texts describe alchemists lighting the mixture and watching in awe as it erupted in bright flames and bursts of energy. It was only a matter of time before they realized its destructive potential. By the 9th century, Chinese military strategists began incorporating gunpowder into weapons, from primitive flamethrowers to deadly fire lances. The world's first true rockets and bombs soon followed. This accidental breakthrough not only shaped Chinese warfare but also spread across continents, eventually revolutionizing battlefields worldwide. The irony? The pursuit of immortality had given birth to one of the most powerful tools of destruction in human history. Deep beneath the surface of Qiandao Lake, hidden from sight for centuries, lies one of China's most mysterious wonders, the lost city of Shicheng. Unlike other ancient ruins buried in the sands of time, this city wasn't destroyed by war or abandoned to decay. It was deliberately submerged. Built during the Eastern Han Dynasty nearly 1,800 years ago, Shicheng was once a thriving political and economic hub, filled with towering archways, intricate stone carvings, and grand temples. But in 1959, the Chinese government decided to create a massive hydroelectric dam, flooding the valley and sending the entire city to a watery grave. For decades, Shicheng remained hidden, untouched by the outside world, until modern divers rediscovered it. What they found was astonishing. The city's stone structures, including its ornate gates and statues, were perfectly preserved, protected from wind and erosion by the still waters. Unlike other ancient ruins that crumble with time, Shicheng looks eerily intact, as if frozen in history. Some call it China's Atlantis, a lost world where time stands still. Today it's a paradise for divers, offering a glimpse into a forgotten civilization beneath the waves. But one question remains: what other secrets might still be lurking in the depths, waiting to be uncovered? In today's world, chess is a game of strategy, patience, and intellect. But during the Ming Dynasty, the Chinese took the concept to an entirely different level, by turning people into the chess pieces. These weren't simple reenactments or playful performances. They were full-scale battles played out on massive outdoor boards, where real warriors stood in place of game pieces, waiting for their turn to fight. The moment a move was made, opposing pieces, actual soldiers, would engage in brutal combat, battling to determine who remained on the board. This extreme version of chess was more than just a game. It was a spectacle, a demonstration of martial skill and discipline. The matches were often held in front of royalty and high-ranking officials, who would watch with excitement as the battles unfolded. Some accounts even suggest that the losing soldiers were sometimes executed on the spot, adding a deadly level of intensity to the game. Though the practice eventually faded into history, its legend remains, a testament to the lengths ancient China went to blend strategy, entertainment, and warfare into a single, unforgettable event. It sounds like something straight out of a horror story, a parasite that invades the body, takes control, and slowly consumes its host from the inside. But for thousands of years, the people of ancient China have known about a strange fungus that does exactly that. Known as cordyceps, this bizarre organism targets insects growing inside their bodies and eventually bursting out, leaving behind nothing but a hollowed-out shell. The sight of an insect with a fungus sprouting from its body might seem nightmarish, but in China, it was considered a miracle of nature. Taoist monks and herbalists believed cordyceps had incredible healing properties, claiming it could boost energy, improve stamina, and even extend life. The fungus was so highly valued that it became a prized ingredient in traditional Chinese medicine, often reserved for emperors and the elite. Today, modern scientists are still studying cordyceps, and the findings are just as fascinating as the ancient beliefs. Research suggests that this so-called zombie fungus contains compounds that may help fight cancer, boost the immune system, and even slow aging. What was once thought to be a mystical cure might actually hold the key to some of modern medicine's most sought-after breakthroughs. In most cultures, marriage is a bond between two living people. But in ancient China, marriage didn't necessarily end with death. For centuries, families practiced ghost marriages, a ritual where deceased individuals were wed to ensure they weren't left alone in the afterlife. The belief was that an unmarried spirit would become restless, wandering the world and bringing misfortune to the living. To prevent this, families arranged posthumous weddings, sometimes between two deceased people, and other times between a living person and a ghost. The process could be elaborate. Families would create a wedding contract, hold a full ceremony, and even include dowries and offerings. In some cases, effigies or symbolic figures were buried alongside the deceased to represent their new spouse. But the practice had a dark side. As demand for these ghostly unions grew, reports surfaced of grave robbers stealing bodies to sell as brides. In some extreme cases, people were even murdered to serve as ghost spouses. Though outlawed in modern China, ghost marriages still occur in some rural areas, proving that even in the 21st century, some traditions refuse to die. Most rulers sought to control their people through laws, taxes, and military power. But Emperor Qin Shi Huang of the later Zhao dynasty took it one step further. He tried to control time itself. His reign in the 4th century was marked by brutality, paranoia, and one of the strangest decrees in history. Disgusted by the rigid structure of schedules and timekeeping, Qin Shi Huang declared that measuring time was unnecessary and even offensive. He ordered the destruction of clocks and sundials, banning officials from mentioning specific hours or keeping track of time in his presence. This wasn't just a whim, it was part of his growing obsession with absolute control. Qin Shi Huang believed that as emperor, he alone dictated when things should happen, and the natural passage of time was irrelevant compared to his will. Without official timekeeping, court affairs became chaotic. Meetings were unpredictable, schedules collapsed, and even the most basic governmental functions suffered. But Qin Shi Huang didn't care. He spent much of his later years indulging in lavish feasts and executing those he suspected of disloyalty. His reign ended violently, with his own family members turning against him. After his death, timekeeping was swiftly reinstated, as officials rushed to restore order to the empire. But for a brief and bizarre period, one man tried to erase time itself, an emperor who believed that as long as he refused to acknowledge it, time would simply cease to exist. Public toilets might seem like a modern convenience, but ancient China had them as early as the Han Dynasty. However, these early restrooms were far from sanitary. Forget privacy, these toilets were often communal, with multiple people squatting over an open pit. There was no running water, no flushing system, and waste simply accumulated below, creating an unbearable stench. Without proper sewage management, these toilets became breeding grounds for flies, disease, and filth. But the strangest part? Some of these toilets doubled as pigsties. That's right, pigs were often kept beneath the toilet pits, feeding directly on human waste. The logic was simple. It was an easy way to dispose of waste while keeping the pigs well fed. These toilet pigs became a common sight in rural areas where people viewed them as a practical solution to sanitation and food supply. While the idea may sound horrifying today, it was a sustainable, if stomach-turning method of waste management in ancient times. Of course, not everyone was thrilled with this setup. Some ancient texts mention disgust at the practice, particularly among wealthier classes who had access to more private facilities. But for many commoners, the pig toilet was just another part of daily life. And while China eventually moved on to more advanced sanitation systems, the thought of pigs living under toilets remains one of the strangest aspects of ancient Chinese hygiene. Brushing your teeth is a basic part of daily hygiene, but in ancient China, toothpaste was a far cry from the minty freshness we know today. Instead of modern toothpaste, people used a gritty mixture made from ground-up animal bones, salt, and even oyster shells. The idea was simple: these abrasive materials helped scrub away plaque and food particles. But they also made brushing a painful experience, especially for anyone with sensitive teeth. Herbs like ginseng and ginger were sometimes added to freshen breath, but without fluoride or modern dental science, tooth decay was common. Some wealthier individuals chewed on special aromatic twigs to clean their teeth and mask bad breath. But for most people, dental care was rough, and losing teeth at an early age wasn't unusual. Despite its crude beginnings, the concept of toothpaste in China paved the way for the advanced formulas we use today. And while we might cringe at the thought of brushing with powdered bones, it was better than the alternative, letting decay take over completely. Becoming a government official in ancient China was a dream for many, but for some, it was a nightmare that ended in death. The imperial examination system, which began during the Sui dynasty and lasted for over 1,000 years, was one of the most grueling academic tests in history. Candidates spent years, sometimes their entire lives, preparing for the exams. The stakes were unimaginably high. Passing meant gaining wealth, power, and social status, while failure meant disgrace and poverty. But the pressure was so extreme that some test takers simply didn't survive the ordeal. The exams took place in tiny prison-like cells, where candidates were locked in for days with nothing but writing materials, a straw mat, and a chamber pot. There were no breaks, no conversations, and no second chances. The intense stress, combined with exhaustion and malnutrition, led to illnesses and even death. Some exam takers collapsed from sheer fatigue, while others, unable to handle the pressure, took their own lives inside the testing halls. And if the mental toll wasn't enough, cheating was punishable by execution. Fashion in ancient China wasn't just about personal style, it was a strict social code, and breaking it could have serious consequences. Bright, vibrant colors were symbols of power and status, but not everyone was allowed to wear them. During several dynasties, including the Tang and Ming, strict clothing laws dictated who could wear what. The brightest colors, gold, yellow, and deep purple, were reserved for the emperor and his close family. High-ranking officials could wear red or blue, while commoners were stuck with dull shades of brown, gray, or black. Wearing the wrong color wasn't just a fashion mistake, it was illegal. If a commoner dared to dress in the rich hues of nobility, they could face harsh punishments, from heavy fines to physical beatings. Some laws even extended to embroidery and fabric patterns, ensuring that only the elite could enjoy luxury. These clothing restrictions reinforced the rigid social hierarchy of ancient China, making it clear who held power and who didn't. That's about it. Write in the comments which fact shocked you the most. For more useful information, watch other videos.